This is still a continuation on holiness. Holiness. Jeremiah chapter 2, verse 3. A nation can be called by holiness if they choose to follow the pattern of God. If they choose to walk in the way of the Lord, they can be called by the holiness of the Lord. Are you there? When you begin to walk faithfully on the path of God's holiness, you get to a point where your identity begins to reflect holiness. You say, oh, the holy is here. Oh, the people of God's holiness are around. Can you see that? But you cannot attain that kind of recognition if you have not been walking, on the path of holiness. Jeremiah 23, verse 9. There the Bible reveals another powerful point. The words that proceed out of the mouth of God are called, you know, they are called the words of holiness. Only the one that is holy can speak the words of holiness. Only the one that is holy can speak the words of holiness. The words of his holiness can also mean the testimony of his holiness. Many do not desire holiness because their eyes have not been opened to see the testimony of God's holiness. The testimony of God's holiness are God's holy words. The testimony of God's holiness are revealed in the, now the testimony of God's holiness are revealed in the words of his holiness. God is holy. His words are also holy. If you are truly holy, it must be reflected in the kind of words that you speak. Your words should reflect holiness. So holiness is not just what you do in action. It's not just an atmosphere that people will see around you. No, it must also be reflected in the quality of the words that you speak. Obadiah chapter 1, verse 17. Holiness can be found upon the mount of the Lord. Holiness can be found upon Mount Zion. Now, deliverance will bring about this holiness. Only a delivered man, only a delivered man can live holy. Only a man that has been delivered can live holy. Those who do not desire to be holy are under the yoke of sin. But when they come to Mount Zion, there is a promise that they will be delivered, and then holiness will become possible. Are you there? So, Mount Zion here is referring to the presence of God. You can't be delivered if you choose to stay far away from God's presence. The first thing the presence of God will do to you is to deliver you from the bondage of sin. Then, after that, you will be qualified to carry the nature of God, which is holiness. It is this holiness that will now empower you to possess your possession. You can't possess your possession if you are not living holy. Your possessions in this context is referring to those things that Christ have made available to you by his sacrifices on the cross. So those are the possessions you will possess. Those things Jesus have made available to you through his death, through his sacrifice on the cross. Those are your possessions. But you can't possess those possessions. You can't come into the reality of those possessions until you are delivered from the yoke of sin. Now, it is your deliverance from the bondage of sin that will now bring you into God's holiness. It is in that state of holiness that you will now be empowered to possess your possessions. Zechariah chapter 14, verse 21. What will bring, what we bring to God must also be holy. Not all sacrifices are acceptable before the Lord. The only sacrifice God will accept is a holy one because He is holy. That you are sacrificing to God does not automatically mean that God must accept it. No, He is not needy, He is not hungry, and He is not poor. If what you are bringing is not worthy, then it won't attract the holy God. Because you want to sacrifice to a holy God, you must ensure that you are holy. Are you there? Because if you are not holy, it will be impossible to sacrifice to a holy God and expect acceptance. Are you getting what I'm saying? Another thing to notice, holiness, the holiness of the Lord is the image of the Lord. God's holiness is God's image. To profane the holiness of the Lord is to make God look lesser than who He is. Those who enjoy relating with strange gods and worldliness are people who may end up making God look ineffective in their lives. God will be powerful in our lives to the degree of our faith and consecration in Him and to Him. The power of God that can be visible in our lives